Good evening. We will restart our meeting now. Mayor Wade is out at another event. He'll be back in a little bit. My name is Brian Pinkston. I'm Vice Mayor. We will begin our meeting with a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Are there any announcements? I think we have a couple here.
Yes, I have a couple of announcements.
Okay.
The first is that on the 28th, there will be Loop de Ville, which is a day-long trail, run, walk, and bike starting at Ravenna River Company at 8 in the morning, and then going all around the city via the trail network, and then it concludes back at Ravenna River Company that afternoon, and then there'll be an after party and a concert. So head to loopdeville.com to register and check out more info. It's going to be hopefully a beautiful day. Also on November 16th, CHS is hosting a alumni night for the 50th anniversary. The 50th anniversary of CHS is in part of that celebration, there will be a band, chorus, and orchestra alumni concert. So bring your instrument if you still have it, and all alums are welcome to participate. It will be on November 16th. So you can find more information by there's an article about it on 29 News, but then also Google it and the website will show up. So that'll be really fun. I was a former orchestra member myself. I do not have an instrument anymore, and no one wants to hear me play. But it'll be fun to go back and watch everybody else. And then the third announcement I have is that on Monday, October 7th, there will be a candlelight vigil hosted by the Shelter for Help and Emergency, taking place at the Ting Pavilion starting at 7 p.m. To memorialize and honor victims of domestic violence. So all are welcome to join. There will be an ASL interpreter there. And then we have a council meeting that night, but if we get out early enough, we have been invited to join as well. So you can find out more about that at the Shelter for Help and Emergency website and their social media.
Great, and I had this announcement from our city treasurer. The city treasurer's office is pleased to announce that DMV Select services have returned to the lobby of City Hall. The DMV Select window is available from 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. Vehicle transactions such as titles, registrations, plates, and handicapped placards are available. No appointments are necessary. For more information, please contact the city treasurer's office. And we have a proclamation. Are there any other announcements before the? Okay.
Okay. So this is National Co-Responder and Crisis Responder Week, and a proclamation in honor of that. Whereas the City of Charlottesville, with the Commonwealth of Virginia and the United States, have continued to address the issue of mental health concerns and substance abuse disorders. And whereas mental health concerns, substance abuse challenges, and co-occurring conditions often can lead to homelessness, incarceration, and emergency room visits, which are more intrusive and costly for communities than earlier intervention and connections to behavioral health services. And whereas many communities, towns, cities, counties, and states have realized the need for additional resources to address these issues, and specifically when individual persons are experiencing crisis situations, including those in the city of Charlottesville, have identified the promising emerging practice and effective program called Co-Response. And whereas Co-Response is defined as pairing a crisis-trained mental health professional with a first responder, such as a police officer or a firefighter or a medic, who respond as a team to collaboratively intervene in varying levels of crisis, with the goal of diverting individuals from arrest and jail, diverting individuals from emergency department visits, and connecting those individuals in crisis with necessary and effective resources. And whereas the City of Charlottesville's co-responder program, the ANCHOR team is the acronym, stands for Assisting Navigation, Crisis Help, and Outreach Resources Team was established in 2024 to partner mental health professionals and peers from our local nonprofit, Partners for Mental Health, with members of the Charlottesville Fire Department and Charlottesville Police Department to respond collaboratively to individuals in crisis. And whereas since its launch in July 2024, the 5-member Anchor team has responded to over 50 calls for help by members of our community who were in crisis due to mental health and substance abuse concerns that caused them to call our public safety professionals via 911 for help, engaged in over 20 follow-up calls or resource provision services to members of our community who were in crisis or otherwise needed supportive services. Now, therefore, the Charlottesville City Council recognizes September 15th, 21st, 2024 as National Co-Responder and Crisis Responder Week in appreciation and gratitude for the Anchor team members and the International Co-Responder Alliance, and we call upon the community to join in celebrating the addition of co-response to our community. Signed and sealed the 16th day of September of the year 2024, Juan Diego Wade, Mayor. Is there anybody representing the recipients?
The team is here.
We have 4 out of the 5 members of Anchor here.
Well, first of all, somebody needs to be the actual recipient of the proclamation. And second, if there's anything you'd like to tell us about what you do and how you do it, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Mayor, who is not here with us right now, and members of the Council for the recognition of National Co-Responder Awareness Week. As you're aware, ANCHOR stands for Assisting with Navigation, Crisis Help, and Outreach Resources. 4 out of our 5 members are here today, and I'll give each of us a chance to introduce ourselves. My name is Norman. I serve as the mental health navigator for the team.
My name is Tammy Shiflett, and I serve as a police officer providing safety for the team.
My name is Jackie, and I'm a firefighter EMT.
My name is Andrew, and I'm a firefighter paramedic.
Since July 1 of this year, ANCHOR has been able to respond to over 50 calls for service for residents in need. We feel honored to be part of this community, and thank you for supporting this very important initiative and bringing a co-responder model to Charlottesville. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the work that you do.
So if I could, I would just like to say to the team before you leave that we definitely thank you for your contribution. It has not been lost on me that we have already exceeded a bit of your capacity, and we've tested a couple of you in ways that we did not necessarily anticipate in the very beginning. But as we work on this budget cycle, we'll continue to do things that we can hopefully make it a little easier for you to do your jobs, and thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. May I request a photo of the team?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go represent the city.
We need it to decorate.
That's right.
Am I taking a picture of that?
Yeah, with them. With.
Oh.
Go. Yes, with.
We'll be in the back giving you bunny ears.
You can Photoshop it.
Yeah, you should be in it too, Misty. Not over here. Go over there. No, I'm just messing. Teasing. Nice. Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'd like to take just a moment to note that back in 2020, Sina McGill and I were sort of co-leading a group that was trying to put together some sort of a mental health crisis response team. And we spent about a year learning all about these kinds of things, but didn't actually get, partly because of COVID and other issues getting in the way, didn't actually get to do anything. And I'm just so glad that with the city manager's assistance and people pushing for it among the first responder programs, that we've got it going, and we're looking forward to more action from you, hopefully a few more members of your team as well to take part in some of that action. But it's a badly needed service, and we're so glad you're doing it.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Okay, so we're now at Community Matters. We have one pre-registered speaker, leaving 15 slots for additional speakers on Community Matters. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. We'll now open the floor to pre-registered speakers. Is our first speaker available? Who is it? That would be Jamel Simpson. No? Okay. Well, maybe next time. Who else? We have 16 slots. Come on up. Yep. Just please remind us of your name and your topic, please.
Hi, I'm Robin Hoffman. I live in Charlottesville and Willem Mills. And I have 3 announcements. First of all, there's going to be voting for everything, president, senator, and governor on Friday for Virginia. What?
Not governor.
What? Oh, what did I say? Senator, congressman, congresswoman, please. Okay, and I will give everybody a free caricature, including their dog, the next day at the Ixart Park Love Fest if you wear your I Voted badge. That's one thing. Also, I want to mention that Gloria Witt has been campaigning here in the 5th District. She's awesome. She did this, oh, I'm getting this wrong. It's called Virginia Stateswoman Person at the center of Belvedere. Anyway, she was awesome. And I just want to say, please look for her name on the ballot. Then the third thing is dirt, dirt, dirt. Dix Woods Road, everybody, has all our refuge, our vegetable refuge. They're doing amazing job. So they process all the stuff that we give the recycling center on McIntyre. And they process it into this beautiful topsoil or compost. I just grabbed a bunch and put it in the back of my car. I want you to know I grew 24 plants, and I have solar, and I have a Prius, and I have an electric bike or a battery bike. I'm one person, and I think that if everybody did the same, it cost me $6 for a whole car full of dirt. So I'm just saying, if you can do that, and we can reach the goal of putting 500 miles, I think it is, of topsoil back on this earth, or 500 years, that's what it is, and it will actually absorb the heat from the atmosphere and help our biosphere. So we can all do that, everybody individually. And then the Botanical Gardens had a art fest, and I was involved, and anyway, so a lot of turnout, and they raised $4,000. They are doing an incredible thing. There were 200 volunteers since 2019, old people, mostly retired, pulling out all the weeds, taking down the kudzu, and that place is gorgeous. Go to their events, support them, and also I'll be on NPR this week if you listen. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Who else would like to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up. Please tell us your name.
My name is Clifford Michael Hall, and what I'm going to speak on is the homeless community. And the first issue about the homeless community, this is an example. Where do policies happen? Where do things happen? They start at city council, at the level. How many people have I spoken to that are homeless within Charlottesville telling them that I would speak? 1,000 or more through Facebook, WhatsApp, what have you. Well, I'm the only one here. What does that say? Homeless community, I'm really speaking to you because if you don't make a presence at city council where decisions are made, you can't complain about what happens. Now, there's a big issue with business owners and the homeless as far as issues going on. Businesses are there to make money. The homeless have been a nuisance to the business owners. What's the compromise? Now, with the most recent Supreme Court ruling that left the decision of how to handle the homeless, it appears to me that we're going back to 1980s Reagan issues on how to deal with the homeless that I would call vagrancy. Now, really, because there's no homeless people here other than me, I'm speaking to you homeless people. Whether you see this or not, if we're not a squeaky wheel, we'll never get grease. If we want anything, improvements, housing, this is where it starts. So if you're not here and make your presence here, make your voice known, you can't complain. I've got 55 seconds, and homeless people, it's really on us. If we want to improve our state, we got to speak. If we don't speak, no one hears us. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Who'd also like to speak? No one else? Okay, with that, we'll close community matters, and we will move to the consent agenda. Ms. Thomas, if you could please read the consent agenda.
Consent agenda number 2, minutes, September 3rd, regular meeting. 3, resolution appropriating funds from the 2024 Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, $76,840, second reading. 4, resolution for state pass-through funding for the Tonsler League, $250,000, second reading. 5, resolution to appropriate fiscal year 2025 fire programs, aid to locality funding, or the fire fund, $238,581, second reading. 6, resolution to appropriate funds from the Department of Housing and Community Development, Virginia Homeless Solutions Program Grant, $470,805, second reading. 7, resolution to approve the 7th amended grant agreement, Charlottesville Supplemental Rental Assistance Program, second reading. 8, ordinance for Stonehenge Avenue encroachment agreement, second reading. 9, ordinance amending the city code to extend the public safety supplement retirement benefit to EMS only employees enrolled in the defined benefit plan, second reading. 10, resolution to appropriate insurance claim reimbursement for the Avon Fuel Station Replacement Project, $65,000, one of 2 readings. 11, resolution to appropriate Victim Witness Assistance Program grant funds, $257,024, one of 2 readings. 12, resolution to appropriate State Historic Resources Grant funds to the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center, $500,000, one of 2 readings.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please cast your votes. Consent agenda passes 4-0. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so now we'll turn to the city manager report. Mr. Sanders, do you have a report for us?
I do. Deputy Marshal's going to go first, and then I will also have a presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. For City Council and the community, we wanted to take a few minutes to make sure that we made everyone aware of the Blue Ridge Health District, Centara Martha Jefferson Hospital, and UVA Health's 5th Map to Health Community Health Assessment process. A community health assessment is really a process that allows all of those entities to dig into what's needed for community health, whether that's more doctors, different services, access to healthy foods. Questions can be about all of those things. Blue Ridge Health District wants to make sure that the community is aware of 2 opportunities to have input into this program. First are some focus groups. So starting in October, they're going to have 21 focus groups throughout the year looking for diverse community members to talk to. Interested residents can complete a focus group form on their website, and it is also, both of these tools are found in multiple languages. And there also is a community health survey that's been launched on their website for residents 18 and older from our community, as well as Albemarle, Fluvanna, Greene, Louisa, and Nelson. And their goal is to have 500 responses by December. And so I really encourage anyone in our community, in those fellow counties, to go to Blue Ridge Health Department's website. It'll be easy to find both the focus group if you're interested in participating, but also if you could please do the community health survey. It's Googleable. I don't know if they have paper formats. I'm happy to find that out. And that is all I have, City Manager.
Thank you.
Okay. So I wanted to this evening go through a quick review of my 2025 work plan. This is a document that I shared last year. I think in October of last year, I shared this with council and the public, and it's basically to outline my goals for the year, things that I'm working on, and how they go across the entire city organization. Some things are specifically me, other things are me in association with other staff members. So just to kind of reorient everyone to this document, and it will be posted online tomorrow. Councilors, I just sent this email to you so that you all have it to take a closer look. But it's framed around the strategic outcome areas. So all 9 outcome areas plus the commitment to JEDI have been identified in this 5-page document, where I am demonstrating to you understanding the importance of the strategic plan, and making sure that the work that I am doing and the team is focused on doing is supporting the implementation of that particular plan. As you go through the document, what you'll see is me attempting to identify where we are prioritizing efforts today. This may not be exhaustive. It's not really meant to be every single thing, because the pages would get too long and you might not be inclined to read it. But ideally, I'm trying to make sure that I highlight things that are of critical importance. So under JEDI, the commitment to JEDI, the first thing that we have here is conduct a comprehensive ADA needs assessment, and right below that is operationalizing those priorities. It's to demonstrate that while we know that we have a lot of work, and historically we have fallen down as it relates to being good stewards of making sure that projects ensure that there are no barriers for those that are within our ADA community, the goal is for us to turn the tide on that. We've had a transition plan. We have a new transition plan that's in the process right now. We expect to have it out at the end of the year. The goal will be to immediately get to work and operationalizing it so that we're making changes. I'm using that particular framework to have conversations with staff. So we'll be talking about how everyone has a role to play in the culture of compliance around ADA. That's something that we've kind of taken for granted, that we're not necessarily prioritizing, that there are individuals who have difficulty interacting with this local government and our community, our city as a whole. And our responsibility is to do something about that when we're made aware of it. Also in the operationalized section, you see the sidewalk priorities list. That is one of my favorite subjects, as I've commented to you all, that I keep talking about sidewalks because we have so much work to do. Ideally, we want to make sure that we're making some steadfast improvements along the way. This is a multi-year priority. ADA work is something that does not happen overnight. It took us a long time to get into these situations. It's going to take us a long time to get out of some of those situations. And then the last box there is implement critical community-based interventions. Marcus Alert, the presentation to our anchor team is the beginning of our Marcus Alert work. There's more for us to do, so I'm looking to figure out what else can we do between now and 2028 when the mandate is in place for us to meet, as well as what are we doing with opioid abatement funds. So I'm just going to quickly move through. I'm not going to go over the whole thing because you can read that, but you see the next section is climate action. We have a lot of work that we need to do in that space. And economic prosperity, education, and housing. Each of these are meant to just be specific project areas, projects that we are working on, things that are being done. I identify resource allocation because that's either the team member that's in charge of it or is working with me on it. It's the person that you will at some point hear from as we bring the deliverable forward, if it requires action by council, if it's an update as to how we're making progress, if it's a change. There are various things that we're going to continue to do in this space, again, to implement your strategic outcome areas as it relates to the strategic plan that has been set for the city. I'll jump down to housing and go with the first item is implement homeless intervention strategy. As we just heard from the individual who spoke about conditions that some of the members of our community face. You see there a low barrier shelter concept and a long-term investment plan are the two priorities that I've set for this year. It is my intention for us to do everything that we possibly can to bring forward that reality of a shelter because it's the piece that's missing, but it's not the only piece. It's not the only thing that needs to be done. We'll continue to work on what those other things are, but it's just to demonstrate for you how important it is for it to appear here and that we're setting goals around being able to deliver some clarity as to can we do this, when can we do this, and how do we do this. Organizational excellence, that's my favorite subject. So when you look at that, it is the biggest of
Hey, I
all.
thought sidewalks were your favorite subject.
This is my most favorite subject. So it's like kids. You don't have one favorite kid. They're all favorite, and I have two. But organizational excellence is really the work. It is what I spend a lot of time thinking about, working on. It is getting this team strong, stable. It is making sure that we internalize what does organizational excellence mean. It means that we show up to work and we get the job done and we have all that we need to do it. We want to do it. We want to make sure that we're making a difference, and we end it with focusing on service and impact. So a lot of the things that are there are some of the same things that have been there, that were there last year. Rebuilding staff capacity where we have vacancies, we're prioritizing getting those positions filled. Working on staff morale. One of the biggest things that had to be done in this past year was really implementing class and compensation. And while it does not make everyone perfectly happy, it was a full transition for this entire organization, something that I thought was very important to be able to deliver. The goal is to continue to make that work, do that work. Our Teamsters contract is going to be our next collective bargaining unit. They're going to be the largest of the four we will have in FY26. Comes at a price, but it's a part of that possibilities that we allow employees to talk to us about what their needs are. And then the last thing I'll say is prioritizing the analysis of feedback for optimal performance. We will be launching an employee survey and a community survey this fall. We've been able to do those for the past 2 years, 2-year increments, multiple times for the past 2-year increments, and the goal is to continue to do that. And the reason for trying to stick to that schedule is that we then can use it more as a longitudinal study. You can see measuring change over time. And ideally, we'll begin to see that bear out as we do a lot of this work and what you see on some of the other pages. And then there's a section on public safety. We start with gun violence intervention because that is probably the hottest issue that falls under public safety category. Our goal is to look for different ways to do things. That's why that box under target measure has multiple things there, because we're not looking for one silver bullet. There's no such thing. We have to do a variety of things. And our goal is to continue to focus on justice reform measures as well as finding ways to ensure that our emergency management framework is in place so that we can handle things that may happen in our community. And then the last things I'll point out to you, recreation, arts, and culture, because quality of life comes in many different ways, and we have to focus on more than just the hard stuff. Sometimes the fun stuff is important for us as well. And then transportation, as we talked to you about earlier this evening, that transportation is the top driver for the budget. There are a number of things that we need to do. This section could be multiple pages all into itself. And ideally, we're beginning to show you that the work is being done to convert our fleet. Those last two items are focused on climate impact. And that, again, is demonstrating for you that we are doing what we said we would do to implement your vision. So I'll end there with any questions based on what you just saw. But again, you have copies, and it will be online for the public to appreciate seeing what it is that we're working on.
I have no questions, but I hope anyone in the public who's interested will read it, because I think it clearly shows there's a tremendous amount of work that's been ongoing for a number of years, and this is showing that it's clearly being tracked with goal dates and is continually being checked in on. And a lot of the things, progress is never as quick as it needs to be, but even this, it's clear with exploring a low barrier shelter and other solutions, homelessness is something that has been seriously worked on by the city for many months at this point, and will hopefully get funded and move forward. Again, even just in our consent agenda tonight was about $500,000 for different homelessness services. So it may not always seem like it to the public, but there's constant action happening on a daily basis. And I think this is just showcasing what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great list, and clearly a lot of work has happened in the last year plus, and there's a lot of work that's ongoing and a lot of work that will get done. But I think this sort of transparency coming before us and show us what you've been working on, what y'all have been working on, is really important, and I just commend you for the work your staff is doing.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to action items. Item number 13 is a public hearing to approve the 2024 Parks and Rec Accessibility Enhancements Project at Jordan Park. Anthony Warren and Alex Ikafuna will introduce the item for public hearing. Yeah, if you could get us going there, Anthony.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Pinkston, Ms. Thomas, councilors. I want to thank City Manager Sanders for queuing this up so well by talking about accessibility work. In the Office of Community Solutions, that's been a big priority. I'm here to introduce Chris Gensick as well. We're partnering up with Parks and Recreation to put forward a proposal to reprogram some community development block grant funds from prior years to enhance accessibility at Jordan Park.
It's over here. I'm sorry. It's over here under the bottom. I didn't realize you had a presentation.
So, as you might remember, we built a new bridge over a tributary in Jordan Park, like right next to Jordan Park, and cost increases prevented the extension of the trail out to the street. So what we're proposing to do is take a little bit of extra money, and that will enable Parks and Recreation to go through and replace the pathway that you see coming up through the middle. If we go back for a second, this is an overhead view, and it shows Jordan Park. You can see where the bridge is up in the top. The pathway currently goes from the accessible ramp on 6th Street up to the basketball court. It elides completely the two playground areas in the park and does not go onto the bridge. And if you see the pathway right now, it's very narrow, it's cracked, it's uneven. There's places where water accumulates after it rains and stays there for a couple days. It's not close to what you would call accessible. And what we would propose to do is similar to the work that we did at Washington Park last year in advance of the health fair. The Healthy Streets, Healthy People fair back in July of 2023, in which we took a pathway on the left, dug that completely out, and replaced it with a completely brand new reinforced drainage equipped pathway, approximately 8 feet wide, so that it's very accessible by a person in a wheelchair or an accessibility device walking next to the person that they're visiting the park with. And at Washington Park, they already had connections to the basketball court and to the playgrounds, but they were very narrow. And so what we did at Washington Park, we were able to put in these little, much wider connectors between the pathway. We propose to completely replace the pathway and install these kind of connectors right there. And then if Mr. Gensick has anything he'd like to add.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Chris Gensick with Parks and Rec. I'm the trail guy for the city, they call me. So this is exciting, because putting this trail system together all around the city is a heavy lift. Having the assistance of the CDBG money and other staff to get parts and pieces put together is great. We got the bridge in. Before we do a ribbon cutting, we wanted to make sure the bridge was actually accessible from the street. So this is great for the internal part of Jordan Park to add the playground. I even told Two Bears he's super excited to get his playgrounds finally accessible. This is also a small piece of the developing Moores Creek Trail corridor. So putting this in now We will work to continue on the other side of the bridge all the way to Fifth Street as we pick up a few more properties, and we can do that entire thing. But if we can use existing money the city has to get this done now, this is a great piece of the puzzle to fill in while we can. And our contractor's ready to go should this be approved.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Make myself available for any
Are
questions.
there any clarifying questions?
Where's the $25,000 coming from?
The same pot of money that was reclaimed from unspent funds from prior years, these would be from 2020 and 2022 programs that were never completed, much like we did for the original Washington Park project and for the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank.
Okay, so it's not like something is not going to get done because this is getting funded?
No, this is what City Manager Sanders referred to as the cleanup work.
Yeah.
Just in the next step.
And I was also curious, there is on the city tax map an indication of Jordan Park West.
Yes.
Which, as far as I can tell, is, I mean, the trail goes through there, but other than that, it's just sort of river bottom kind of land. Is there a plan for that?
Certainly, those are properties I've been stacking up over my tenure here with the city. Again, those are along the Morse Creek corridor. We picked up from 3 different property owners, I believe. So I think the piece that used to be called Charlie Close that has 6 subdivided lots they were looking at for potential housing. I think because of the flood issues, I'm not sure if that's going to proceed. But the way I work with the trail system is any willing owner would pick up those pieces, and once we get to connecting from a street to a street or a park to a park, we can go ahead and really lay that out. So with 2 more property owners, I think we can connect all the way over to 5th Street at Brook Mill and get really close to the 5th Street Shopping Center and Wegmans.
Is there any sort of plan or even a pipe dream for anything different to happen along those properties, or is it just going to be the home of the trail?
That's one of the sections we did a whole lot of that invasive plant management and replanting to restore the stream corridor. Most of the lands that we collect for the purposes of the trail system are that flood land that's kind of, people haven't been taking care of it for years, and we do a lot of natural resource type work in it, but it doesn't always lend itself to much more than trails and natural stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, thanks so much. I just have a couple questions. You said the contractors are ready to go. When would, if like we started tomorrow, when would the project be done, or what is the likely
The likelihood would that it would be
completion date?
approximately 4 to 6 weeks. Washington Park, from the time they put a shovel into the ground to the time it was done was approximately 2.5 weeks, and that encountered a significant demolition delay. Not anticipated in this because it's a very narrow pathway, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully.
Okay, cool. And then why, just for materials, what are the advantages of, other than it's ready right away, what are the advantages of the asphalt over concrete?
It used to be cost. When I started, concrete was more expensive, and that's where Public Works put some asphalt sidewalks in on Fontaine to see. I believe they're generally similar these days, but I haven't actually checked. We just use asphalt for most of ours. Our contractor doesn't do concrete, but it doesn't mean this couldn't be done with concrete if it fit your budget.
The way it was explained to me from the contractor, and admittedly, that's from the contractor who does the work, the asphalt is much, it's reinforced on the bottom with multiple layers of gravel, but it's easier to repair over the long run. If cracks and pieces, they can just come in, dig out a little piece and put some more hot asphalt over the top, whereas concrete, we've seen, is very strong, and yet when it breaks, it's very hard to repair. So it's primarily easy to repair is the way it was explained to me.
I've also learned in my tenure that's why joggers tend to run in the bike lanes. I thought it was because of driveway cuts and signs on the sidewalk. They say it's easier on your knees, so that would be another one.
Okay, thank you.
People cover every question I had, and to me, it seems pretty straightforward. I'd be comfortable moving it to the consent agenda.
Yeah,
Public hearing.
I've got to do a public hearing first, so I will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this item? Okay. With no speakers, the public hearing is now closed. Council, is there any discussion? I think that there's agreement to put this on the consent agenda for October 7th.
That's fine.
With you? Okay, great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all. Appreciate it.
Actually, real quick, is this one of those things we could vote for and then it's done?
No.
Or does it have to get to the consent agenda?
Well, I mean, yeah, it requires 2 readings unless you,
I think it does require 2 readings because it's a public
because
hearing.
it's an appropriation.
My understanding is that if there is a public hearing, you can vote on it the same night as the
Oh, okay.
public hearing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
If we have 4 out of 5 yeses.
I'm good.
And then they could get started.
Yeah.
Motion.
Motion to vote tonight?
You good
Go
with that?
ahead.
Is that it?
Sure.
Okay. So you'd move that we go ahead and do this, and
Waive the
Madam
second
Clerk,
reading?
this is okay?
As long as it's unanimous at this point.
Yeah,
Do we have an attorney on the line?
we should.
So that's been my understanding, is that you can vote the night of a public hearing. Otherwise, it would require 2 readings.
Yeah, I just want to be careful because this is CDBG money. and-
Right. Yeah, I don't want to mess with the appropriations, but because this is a project, I'm sure you all are ready to get started, and we don't have another meeting for 3 weeks, so.
Well, I know the Washington Park thing we did on a 1-reading basis. Same rule.
It's the
Yeah,
same.
that's right. Remy, do you see Ms. O'Berry online?
Should I?
Yes, I see her. I just promoted her to panelist.
Good
Okay.
evening, councilors, vice mayor, city manager. I think after the public hearing, city council can vote, provided you follow your procedures, in terms of supermajority vote. In other communities that have experienced, the city council, after the public hearing, they place the item on the fast track for approval, and that constitutes the second voting. So I don't know whether the city attorney is here, but that's the way I've seen this has been done in the past. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think she's on.
Yes, you can vote on it tonight with it can pass with the supermajority tonight.
Great.
In that case, I would move the resolution to approve the 2024 Parks and Recreation Accessibility Enhancement Project at Jordan Park and to reprogram Associate Community Development Block Grant Funds in the amount of $25,000, and in doing so, waive the second reading.
Second.
Okay, cast your votes.
Great.
Thank you, and thanks for expediting. We'll get it going
Yes.
as soon as the money moves
Excellent.
over.
Great.
Thank you.
Happy to see that. Yeah. Let's see those shovels breaking ground. Thanks.
Okay,
all.
yeah, thank you all. Item 14, ordinance to adopt fire safety code fee schedule, 1 of 2 readings. Fire Marshal Joe Phillips will present.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, City Councilor, staff. I'm Joe Phillips, City Fire Marshal and Deputy Chief of Community Risk Reduction. Little historical stuff. The Charlottesville Fire Marshal's Office has asked that we amend the current ordinance for fire permits. In 2019, City Council authorized the implementation of a permit process, but due to the pandemic, we never actually started doing the permits. With the effect the pandemic had on local businesses, we made the decision as a city not to start the billing process. Now in 2024, we've worked with city staff and we believe that we can go back in and readopt the payment schedule for that. Our thought was to go ahead and adopt the entire 107.2 table out of the Virginia Statewide Fire Prevention Code. Not saying that I'll have all of those types of businesses in the city of Charlottesville, but we never know. And so go ahead and adopting it now will allow us that if someone wants to have an aircraft hangar at some point in the city of Charlottesville, we could charge a permit for it.
That's important.
It is. Currently, city staff has agreed that for us not to start the billing process in January, to start the permit process, yes, but they're going to cover the cost of the permits for my budget until July, when we can implement the fee structure and the charges as part of your budget process this year. So I think y'all heard a little bit more about that earlier, and that's the thought. What are we going to use the money for? Fire prevention, education, buying equipment. We don't have a funding stream in the fire department now that is dedicated for fire prevention, education, the tools, the equipment. Our smoke alarm program, we've offered free smoke alarms for over 30 years in the city of Charlottesville. We now also offer stovetop fire stops, and we have offered CO detectors thanks to a community block grant like y'all talked about. With this funding, we will again be able to offer the CO detectors to the city residents, all for free, installation for free, and go from there. And a little side note on the stovetop fire stops. This summer alone, we've had 3 kitchen saves with those stovetop fire stops in our city. One just last week. So the price difference between an entire kitchen fire, $25,000 to $30,000 for what the apartments were seeing before. Now you're talking about under a $2,000 paint and renovation. Maybe you're replacing a stove is the difference. So those
what are
things.
this called? Countertop?
Stovetop fire stops
What is
the
that?
brand. It looks like a tuna fish can that magnetically attaches in your kitchen hood, and they go over each eye, and so you get 2 per stove, and they deploy with the heat. If you've left something on too long and you start a small kitchen fire, it deploys like a fire extinguisher automatically and puts the fire out.
Interesting.
I believe it was last Saturday we had one. So, once you approve the budget for next year and we start billing, it really is no budgetary impact for the city. It's really a budgetary impact for the property owners and business owners. This is only commercial businesses that we'd be billing once we get that all set up. And most of these businesses have businesses in the county or over in the valley, and they're already billing. The Albemarle County's been billing for fire permits more than 25 years. So that's, in conclusion, adopting this ordinance is not just about requiring fire permits, it's about ensuring that the public safety and funding for vital fire prevention education initiatives. I urge City Council to consider this proposal and support the overall well-being of our citizens.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. Are these permits like a one-time thing the
Yearly.
businesses have to, so they're yearly? Okay. That answers my second question. Thank you.
So there's an entire, it's a pretty substantial list that's in here. And this is adopted from the state fire prevention code,
It is.
and we've not had this up till now?
So in 2019, the chief and fire marshal at the time chose 5 of those items, 2 of which are no longer in the, they chose tents. We can't use tents anymore. NDS is already charging for a tent permit, and it actually came out of the fire permit thing. It's still in there that you could if your city did not have a building official that's charging. We do, so we're not charging for tents. They also chose hazmat, and we're going to leave hazmat in, of course. And they chose the daycare inspection, group home. That's one that we do a lot of in the city now, and it's based on the size of your social services permit. They're required. We do those now, and so they stayed in. But most of them, they just picked 5, just trying to get started back in 2019, and we decided now. I think we have the staffing and computer systems to allow us to build, and if we find them, we're just going to do it. We're already inspecting these places now, so they're familiar with us. Very few of them are new inspections.
I see.
Yeah.
And then from the packet, if my understanding is correct, this is basically just copying the fee schedule that exists in Albemarle County.
Yep. Yeah, I tried to mirror Albemarle County's identically. They have a couple that, you notice most of ours are 200 per permit, and there's a couple that are 75, but most of ours are 200. They have a couple that sort of vary on that as well. And I just kept, just to keep consistency, you know, instead of 175 for one or something, it was, but they have some that are higher than 200, and we tried to keep everything right at the 200.
Yeah. Well, to me,
Except
it
for
seems,
fireworks.
yeah, to me, it seems straightforward. I feel like businesses benefit from CFD, even if they don't have in a year rely on the service as a kind of social insurance. So I think a fee is completely reasonable. So I'd be prepared to move it to a consent agenda at the upcoming meeting.
I just was wondering, on page 2 of the fee schedule, there's some text that's in blue. Is it blue is it like an edit that was made for us, or is that special for some reason?
So because we have a city ordinance, so I copied the city code and put in there, we don't allow fireworks in the city of Charlottesville. And so that's a big change for Albemarle County. They do, of course, allow fireworks. We don't even allow consumer grade. You can't have a sparkler in the city of Charlottesville officially. And so
That's good to know.
there's really no reason for this permit unless we find funding to do a large show with fireworks. So.
Okay, so it's just kind of highlighting that it's a difference.
Right. I wanted to make sure people understood if you're comparing Albemarle counties and ours, I felt like the city code should be in there.
Great, thank you.
Good, thank you. So we're good with putting it on the consent agenda for next? Great. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 15, an ordinance to approve a funding agreement for Carlton Mobile Home Park. We want to do one reading with at least a supermajority vote if possible. And we have Mr. Freeze and Ms. Kelly.
Good evening. For the record, Brenda Kelly, Redevelopment Manager. The item in front of you tonight is basically a follow-up from your August approvals, where it was discussed that a loan agreement would have to come back in front of you to spell out the terms of the action. This is for the city funding of the acquisition of the Carlton Mobile Home Park property by Piedmont Housing Alliance and Greater Charlottesville Habitat for Humanity. So in your presentation, this is the property we're talking about, which you're probably very familiar with. And the loan agreement in front of you, these are some of the general terms. Here's the parties of the redevelopment of the property. Piedmont Housing Alliance and Habitat will be forming a wholly owned 50-50 joint venture structure known as Habitat Carlton Alliance LLC. And that will be the entity that will be developing the property, ultimately owning it and operating it. It is intended at this point that there will be a minimum of 180 residential units. A minimum of 5 of those for rent units will be for households with incomes of 0 to 30% AMI. A minimum of 5 for rent units to households with incomes at or below 50% AMI. And 70% of the total units for rental or home ownership by low and moderate income households. As you know, there are no current plans for the redevelopment, so those are what the city is asking for at this point and intending to be minimum numbers for development on the property ultimately. What you would be approving tonight, if you approve it, is a forgivable loan with a 40-year term. The loan is up to $8.7 million. That is an up to amount because it will be the financing costs and the amount of the purchase of the property. The PHA and Habitat have agreed that one city manager appointed staff or designee and one city councilor will be appointed to a to-be-formed redevelopment planning committee for the redevelopment of the property. And should the city not appropriate future funds, which was discussed at your last meeting, the agreement will terminate, but HCD will be required to pay back any funds that were advanced if there are any excess proceeds. There will be another agenda item at your next meeting, as again discussed in August. Additional funds will need to be appropriated to make an October payment. And that item will be coming as an appropriation at your next council meeting. The property is intended to be closing on this week, so that is why the urgency in the 4/5 vote that's being requested, so that this is finalized prior to the closing. Any questions? Mr. Freese and I are here to answer.
I just wanted to clarify, for the minimum 5 for 30% or below, and then the other minimum 5 for 50% AMO, that's AMI, sorry. That's 10 total, so it's not that the 30% are within the 5, or?
I'm sorry, ask the
Okay.
last part of the question again.
Okay,
Last
yes, so it lists, there's 2 lines where it's a minimum of 5 for rent units at 30% below, and then also another 5 or 5 at 50% AMI or below.
10 total units.
10 total, okay.
Yeah.
So one's not encapsulating
No.
the other, okay. And then can you talk a little bit more about the last bullet point?
So as was discussed in August, the funding over a 5-year period, this city council cannot guarantee those funds. So each future city council through the budget process will allocate funding to commit to what your all intention is at this point. If there are future city councils that don't allocate the funding or guarantee the funding for that fiscal year, then the city has basically defaulted on the city's intent, which is not a default because we clearly said we cannot commit those funds. Then HCA, that's Piedmont Housing Alliance and Habitat, basically there is no longer an agreement in place. So the agreement is in place based on that funding coming for the project. So at that point, HCA can back out of the agreement or get out of the agreement, but it is intended that HCA will be required to pay back funds that the city had already provided that there's any proceeds left from whatever they were doing in the meantime with the funding.
So if, let's say, in 6 years, the city votes to no longer fund the project, they have to pay back everything we've already given them, or anything that we had?
Correct.
Okay.
However, your last fiscal year 30, you will have one payment left in fiscal year 30. So if it's basically more than this, less than the 6 years, they will have that. Otherwise, up to fiscal year 30, then the city will have committed all the funding. Did I confuse that more?
No, I'm just, it seems like kind of a rough deal for HCA if the city decides
Well,
not
I guess
to.
this is because we can't tie the hands of future councils. Is that what this is about?
That is correct.
Yeah.
It's also recognizing that the last line there, if there are excess proceeds, right? So let's say in a worst-case scenario, something happens in the marketplace and they then turn around and sell the property because they can no longer, because the funds aren't there, so they, or however that works, they sell the property and it sells for less than what we've paid for it, they don't owe us the excess, right? So that line does protect them as well in this
So I don't think it's like anything that I'm not sure it's something that I'm glad that we necessarily have to include, but we do have to include it, I think, because of the fact that we can't bind
That's
the
correct.
future councils.
Yeah, I just want to be clear on it, that if, like, is that, in like 3 years, if council doesn't vote to fund it, they pay us back the first 3 years of payments that we'd already given them? Or isn't that like sunk, done, they keep that? What?
No, they pay us back to the extent possible, what they've already been received. So they don't owe us for stuff they haven't gotten yet now.
Right, but they owe us for stuff we've already given them?
Yes, for money we've already given them, yes.
Okay,
If we bail.
If we bail.
got it. Because that's assuming then the project doesn't happen.
Yes,
And
at
so we
that
get
point, the
money back.
project doesn't
Seriously
happen.
complicated.
Yeah.
It's seriously complicated.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Right, this is not a scenario anyone hopes for, I just wanted to
No, sure.
understand what that was.
No,
Okay,
that's-
thank you, sorry for asking that in a
No, it's a
confusing
good,
way.
I'm glad you did. It's important to understand.
Not a question, but just to highlight for the community to understand, this is just one component of what would be an overall project involving lots of different eventual requirements from different funding sources. So, when this portion is saying a minimum of 5 units at 0 to 30% AMI, that doesn't mean all you're going to get is 5 units. There's already a commitment to, similar to Southwood, ensure anybody who wants to stay there is able to in a unit that's affordable to them at their current income. Additionally, they're going to be getting low-income housing tax credits and other state funding that will have other affordable housing requirements. So I think Habitat's average AMI level is around like 20-something%, citywide. So I just wanted to highlight that. I mean, this is just one component. This isn't saying there's only going to be 5 units at 0 to 30%
No,
AMI.
I appreciate you pointing that out, Councilor, because a lot of the conversation around this was how we're all going to strive throughout this process to provide more affordable housing, provide affordable housing at a deeper level. That's the objective of all parties to this agreement. But the agreement reflects where we are comfortable today, given the uncertainty about this project going forward and the different funding streams that are going to have to come into play. Because every single one of those affordable units requires some degree of subsidy, and the more affordable the unit is, the higher degree of that subsidy is, and that subsidy has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And to add a little to that too, the presence of market rate units helps offset the price of the more affordable units.
Absolutely correct.
So if you do have more market rate units, you can get either that deeper affordability or more at a more moderate affordability level.
That is absolutely correct.
So both types are needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, just to clarify, all we need to do today is pass the ordinance for a funding agreement. There's nothing else.
Yeah, there's nothing else today, no.
Okay.
Okay. So is there, Lloyd, you have any questions?
No.
Okay, so is there a motion for this ordinance to approve a funding agreement for Carlton Mobile Home Park?
Let's take a 15-second break so that the mayor can join us for this vote.
Welcome back. Back in time.
Just in the nick of time.
Mayor Wade, would you like us to repeat our?
Should I just make a motion? Or?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I would move to approve the ordinance to approve a funding agreement for Carlton Mobile Home Park and do so waiving the second reading and passing it on one reading with a 4/5 vote.
Second.
Okay. I'll give it to Natalie.
Okay, so it's been moved and properly second. Before we go on, I just want to add that, we did get a couple of questions this evening about, to make sure that there was another offer. I just want to make sure that, I don't know if everyone got that or it was just me.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Is there a public hearing for this or?
No.
No.
Okay.
Didn't we
Okay.
do it last time?
So can we vote?
Sure.
The motion passes 5-0, so.
Thank you all. Just in time.
Okay, are we at 16, is that?
Yes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a confidential settlement agreement, and we have been briefed on this, so we can just approve it? It's not anything we have to read, okay. So does anyone want to make a motion for?
I move for approval of the confidential settlement agreement.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay. Been moved properly second. Can we vote? The motion passes 5-0. The next item is general business, is second opportunity for the community to speak. If there's anyone from the community who would like to speak, please come up. If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Hell of a job there.